Welcome to Lugal's world. We have Joel here. He has a world, a whole universe of knowledge here on Steiner, a whole video series. Please check them out on his channel that goes really deep into these ideas. I wanted to contact him to really ask questions and learn more about these topics. So, Joel, I'd like to know, where are we? Like, where are we at this time period from like a cosmic perspective? Like, what's happening?
You mean in the world?
Yeah, yeah, this time that we're in.
Well, it's what it looks like from the inside when a civilization dies.
Hmm.
But when a civilization dies, there's also birth. So it's like the process metamorphosis in a caterpillar to the butterfly. There's this stage of chaos in between in the chrysalis. So we're in the chrysalis stage, which is chaos. And then people will create new order. And of course, it's hard to know some of the bigger questions, like are they going to start an atomic war or other weapons of mass destruction or the rest of that? But I mean, my what I've discovered, so to speak, is that the what we get in the newspaper is karma, somebody else's karma. It's a story about someone involved in something. But if we think about life, we realize that everybody's got a biography, an individual biography. You're born, you live, you die. And in my encounters with the mystery, the individual human biography is holy. And the rest of the stuff that goes on, the wars and stuff, is just noise that's needed for us to experience what Steiner called the age of the consciousness soul.
What's the age of
There,
the consciousness soul? Wow. Is that the individualizing of the consciousness and opening up inside of it kind of thing, or?
yeah, and in a certain sense, he talks about uh, in different places. There's let's see if I can get this. The biography is going to form itself in such a way that we're isolated in terms of what we decide is the truth and what is the good, and
Mhm.
that's our freedom
Wow.
he's given to us. And then with that freedom, what we do in our biography is whatever we do.
Mm.
And so you could be in the Ukraine, and you could be a kid running around to survive, and or you could be a fat cat in a bank someplace. Everybody's got their biography. Everybody's a child of the mystery. It's not easy being alive, and I can guarantee it's not easy getting old. It's not for sissies, my doctor girlfriend once said. Let's talk tarot. How's that?
Sure. Yeah.
Now, were you into Crowley, or was that somebody you had on your podcast that was into Crowley?
I put a channel that was dedicated to it that was taken down. I put all of their videos, which explains like the thelemic and deeper esoteric information that Crowley opened up there on each card. And everyone check out if you're interested in the tarot that on my channel.
So you've been studying tarot for a long time.
I've been studying tarot like really seriously very recently, but for 3 years in a less intense, less kind of more scholarly way for 3 years. My own experience with it.
What was your first encounter like?
Someone showed it to me, and I was like very fascinated by it. So I started. I had an app, and I was like looking at the different different archetypes, and yeah, it intrigued me. But I was questioning about it. I'm like, is this really real? Does this really work? And then as time moved on, it became very exciting because it'd be all these synchronicities, and then it became a real gauge to see if I'm lying to myself, because I feel it shows me the energy, especially when I don't want to hear it, and kind of slaps me out of um, my own delusions and everything, and brings me into the cleaning up the spiders in the woodshed.
Yeah. The truth about ourselves will do that sometimes. It's kind of a shock. But you know, we're loved, in spite of how horrible it seems, and it's one of the best things I heard was, well, Emerson said, "Trust yourself." I mean, basically, everybody's in a situation where they're faced with choices, and they should rely on themselves to what they do because basically everybody else is doing the same fucking thing. So we live in this world, individuation works, you know, and then we have, well, there's probably karma and who knows what and the rest of that. That's not so much fun, but let's see.
Are we like really bad or really good to end up here at this time, or are we? It's a mix, so it depends on what's happening. Is it everything in between, or is this like the best position to be in, like on Earth at this time? Like, what do you think? Why are we right here? I haven't had any conclusive answers from people yet, so I'm hoping to get some answers.
Well, a lot of the phenomena that's described to us by the thinking that we do today is in error. So uh, there is no such thing as a population explosion in a certain sense. There's this moment in the history of the evolution of humanity which is so significant, this passage through chaos and self-development, that everybody wants to be at the party. So
Mm.
that's why we have lots and lots of people here doing lots and lots of things, because this is the time when they get to sharpen this sense of truth and the good in themselves. That's what it's for.
So
So
we're
there
like,
isn't like a, yeah.
so it seems like you're saying that we were in some astral place maybe, and then we saw, okay, where do we want to self-develop? And they're like, okay, well, you should go to Earth at this time because you'll really be able to like, you know, have all these attributes. Is that around the lines or something different? Um,
No, no, that works. I mean, everybody's got to sort of be their own scientist of the spirit. You know, you got to ask the questions. You got to answer them yourself. You can talk to other people, you know, to get maybe inspired. Emerson said we should never put our mind in orbit around another.
hmm.
We lame something in ourselves if we do that. So, one of my issues with the Steiner people is they spend way too much time reading Steiner.
Definitely. I went to a Steiner group and I thought it was very few spiritual experiences. I tried to share with them my awakening and they didn't have any spiritual experiences to share. And I was like, what? This is like the whole purpose of this is to like it's like they're looking at the finger pointing without looking at what the finger's
Yes,
pointing.
exactly. Without exactly, yeah, yeah, yeah. Same time, the, the appearance of Rudolf Steiner in history is very crucial. They are dropping the ball on how to get the world to take advantage of what he brought, but uh, he incarnated in 1861, and that was the start of the Civil War in America and in Central Europe. He incarnated, and his father ran a train station. He went to school, and when he was 8 years old, he started having visions. When he was 11, he was able to follow his school teacher that had died into the afterlife. And when he wrote a paper about it, the response to the social life around him was so shocking that he never said another word till he was 42 about his spiritual experiences. Well, when you're 11 and you try to share, it's just so he had to bottle it up, which was important. And then uh, what also happened in the mid 1800s was natural science reached two kind of peaks, which today we would call Big Bang cosmology and neo-Darwinian evolution. And he had to provide a way to get through that without losing science. So the first work he did was to create a science of knowing. That's based on his work with Goethe. So if you want to get a kickstart on his way of thinking, you can't do any better than a book called Goethe's Theory of Knowledge. And Steiner wrote it. He'd been asked to. He's not even 25 when the academics that he's been studying with asked him to be the editor of all of Goethe's scientific works.
Amazing. Wow.
Yeah, that's a stamp, right?
He
But
must be a pretty old soul. Or is that the
well,
wrong
he's
terminology?
he's if you go by what they believe about him, yeah, you can get all the way back to Gilgamesh and
Oh, is he like Hermes Trismegistus, or like what is?
no, Hermes is Franz Bardon. He's been with us in the 19th century, but
Very cool. Who's Steiner? Who's Steiner in you're talking about back? Who was he long time ago? I'm so curious.
well, the most significant one from the standpoint of the Anthroposophists is he was Aristotle.
Wow.
So the effect of Aristotelianism is a kind of thinking, but it's reached a point where it only takes you so far. And so he pointed out that there were two groups that generally incarnated, not at the same time, two groups of wisdom teachers. And he talked about this gathering of these wisdom teachers about 11th century around the building of Chartres, and some were uh, thinkers in the Aristotelian level, and others were what was called the Platonist. Now, the distinction that he makes is hard to understand by his students because they think he's talking about Platon's ideas. Actually, he's talking about a Platonist was a Socrates and Plato were initiates in the feminine mysteries. So Steiner said that there had to be this thing that he called the culmination where the Aristotelians and the Platonists met and mixed these two mystery streams. And so that's the major work I'm involved in with the Anthropops, is trying to get that to come alive in their work and for them to figure out what they're supposed to do with that. But
And thank you for
while
your
that was going
service.
on, among
Thank
other
you for your
things,
service
Steiner
to the world. Yeah.
inspired Goethean science. Have you ever heard of Goethean science?
No.
Uh, a good book to start with is called Man or Matter. It's available on Amazon in paperback for less than 20, I think, plus delivery, by Ernst Lehrs. It's about a study of nature through the training of thinking and observation based on Goethe's work. And it'll give you a history. Basically, it's a gospel of history of physics, but it goes through the history of physics, adding in the spiritual things when we took a wrong turn.
Mm. Mm.
And then there's other Goethean science books, but these things have come into existence. So even though they're not widely known yet, they well, there's amazing scientific work if you can get into it, and on my uh, blog, The Collective Imagination, you can find links to those
And I'll
works at
put the
those
links
places.
for everyone. So please check out his works.
Say that again.
I was telling everyone that they can go check out the links in the description of the video. So,
Okay. Yeah.
I'm wondering about what would you say are the most important things for people to do at this transitional period we're in? Let's say somebody they're going through a time where it's getting, because I feel like it's going to get more and more chaotic. What do people do to ensure their next incarnation is as good as possible? Should they be starting a subculture and like living with like nature, or like should they like what's the big three things or a few things that you feel like people should be doing right now?
Well, we live in a culture where there's a lot of, oh yeah, there's enlightenment, initiation, you should do this, you should do this. And I bought that business wholeheartedly. And I'm not saying you should do those. When I started to beat the mystery, they didn't give a fuck.
Hmm.
They want you to be you. And since you're free, they have no idea what you're going to choose to do. It's fascinating to them. We all live in the eternal now. You can't get out of the now. You can't get away from yourself. Same goes with them, right? So here we are, their
Wait,
children, and we're
who's
doing
them?
our shit. What?
Who's them? Who's them? Them?
Oh, the gods and the
Ah,
hierarchies and all the rest of them. They're well, they're mixed in with everything. We just lost the ability to see them, but we have to build some new organs in our inner life, and that's one of the things that the conscious soul age is supposed to do. It strengthens the individuality in the face of two serious questions. What is good, and what is true. And it's funny to see the things that have gone on in this age. I do a kind of phenomenology, a Goethean study of social life, and it's been fascinating to watch sort of the chaos emerge during this era of AI and deep fakes and all the lying and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And everybody goes, oh God, that's terrible, it's terrible. But one of the things it does is it enables people to want to have their own sense of the truth. There's so much out there that they're kind of stuck, you know, if I'm going to deal with this. And of course, you have karma with people and weird shit that hasn't happened yet and diseases to have.
fun. All that
On the
all that
question of
Saturnian.
getting, doing the right thing. You can't do the wrong thing
I
to
love
love.
that. That's so
You
funny.
can't you can't do the wrong thing to
But
love.
yeah, but isn't there some things that are have more suffering in them? Isn't that true or not?
Uh,
Do you feel like it's equal?
well, suffering is a kind of interesting idea. A lot of it's well, I don't want to wander off into Buddhism and Zen and all that stuff.
I really wanted to ask you about the hierarchy of beings, how they're fascinated by us. I was really interested in that comment that they're fascinated by us. Could you go into that?
Well, Goethe had a thing that he says, which other people have said, and which I've directly experienced over a long, long time. And that is that when you're sort of void of course, or you don't know what the fuck to do, you're going to probably get depressed because you're holding something in, right? But eventually you have to make a decision. And that's what divine providence, represented by the mother forces or the nurturing forces, can step in. You have to make a decision. Then the help comes.
Amen. I love that so
Lead.
much. Oh, that's
Follow
so
your
good.
lead.
I love that. Everyone, make a decision when you're depressed. Go and do something.
Yeah, all you have to do is make a choice, but some of them are awful. I've had them, really bad awfuls with divorces and taking care of kids, and but if you don't choose, then you're wandering
I feel
that
like
hole.
I have a weird experience where when I'm in a situation like that, I feel like Cain wandering the earth in a way. It's like a weird kind of lostness.
Well, you can't go wrong describing life poetically
Hmm.
because it's artistic. It's artwork, and that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to bring art out of ourselves, and
Wow.
unfortunately, you sometimes have to lay your heart on the table, which makes you kind of vulnerable. But
Hmm. My other question is, let me think. Um, how do you feel like the world will look this century? What's this century going to look in the future?
well, there's no certainties. Uh, I would say that people don't realize that the weather is and the four horsemen are controlled by the mother,
Hmm.
and we're in for a hard ride
Hmm.
because chaos has to be introduced before you can have something new come into existence. Um, there's indications, there's even some statistical studies that population experts have recently published along. They're expecting a big die off.
Hmm.
That could happen in all kinds of ways. Uh, can happen in nasty ways and good ways. But I think basically, if one was looking to survive or work with people that were going to survive,
Hmm.
I recommend that you get in the mountains near
Hmm.
the coast and learn the
Mountains near
skills
the
of
coast.
living in nature and going to sea.
Hmm. Because of like, are you thinking about like ice caps melting kind of thing?
Well, it depends on how you think about it. Some Native Americans think that the melting is a preliminary to a new glacier age. I heard one on a Pioneers program say it's like a rheostat in your dining room. You turn it up and the light gets brighter and brighter, but at the end it goes off. So they're suggesting that the warming is going to go off and there'll
Hmm.
be a sudden cold. Did you see
So everyone
the
buy some winter clothing and go to the mountains. Do it.
you see the day after tomorrow or whatever it is?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's happening right now. The Atlantic Ocean is getting too warm.
Hmm.
And that cold water currents that it depends on for bringing the weather, the place that it is, it's all shifting.
And then my question is, do you feel like in regard to the incarnation of Ahriman, is it kind of like is there a like one person Antichrist in addition to the energy of the of Ahriman everywhere? Or like what is that? What's the full meaning of the incarnation of Ahriman in this age, do you think?
Well, that happens to be an expert thing I'm an expert in.
Beautiful.
Uh, well, a thing to keep in mind a little bit when we look at certain things is the idea of the macrocosm and the microcosm. So everything that's in the macrocosm you've got. So you got Lucifer, you got Airman, you got the Sun Demon, you got all the fuck ups in there, right? So, and that's the best way to sort of understand those processes in other people is to understand when you have been luciferic or when you've been Aramanic. And then, of course, the question is, what does that mean? Uh, The most important book people could write that I'm ever going to mention to anybody actually is called On Becoming a Real Alchemist by MacCoun. Now, she says in their book that there's two sort of things that we can get in trouble with, and in each case, it has to do with the absolute. If we want absolute facts, if we think there's such a thing as absolute facts, then we're in Ehrman's territory.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes
And
sense.
if we
Wow.
think there's absolute truth, we're in Lucifer's territory.
Wait, what's the difference between the facts and truth? What you're saying? I'm so fascinated by how one is saying
Well,
this.
a fact is a thing like 2 times 2 is 4.
Ah,
And the truth is, it's good to kiss your wife.
hmm, hmm. And by absolute, it's like unchanging. Is that what you're saying? Like,
Yeah, yeah. See, Ehrman's incarnate right now.
well, in a certain sense, hasn't Ahriman always been incarnating?
Well, the
What's different?
ahrimanic has always been with us. The ahrimanic is but Lucifer, according to Steiner, had an incarnation in 3000 BC in Asia, and that actually led to Lao Tzu and Confucius.
Oh, wow, wow.
Yeah, he would. They knew he was coming. They brought him into a kind of monastery as to sort of keep him in line, and then two of his students were Lao Tzu and Confucius. So Ehrman was supposed to incarnate around our time. Uh, Steiner predicted it. Uh, I did a lot of studies of various things, and none of the well, none of the Steiner people like to agree with me, but they never actually produced the studies. In other words, there's writings and studies and quotes and good scholarship.
Yeah.
Anyway, his name is Karl Rove. Karl Christian Rove was born on 1950 on Christmas Day. Uh, in my writing, you'll find a description of things he thought and said. Basically, he was inside the White House when we had two Bush administrations and 9/11 and all that shit.
Wow. Mm.
And he's the when they make movies, they make movies. They made a movie of Cheney and they made a movie of Bush, and Rove is there as this little short guy carrying a bunch of books, which is exactly what he was like. He was always walking around with these spreadsheets. And I listened to a woman talk about working for him once, and she said, well, he'd go over to the computer and he'd press the buttons and he'd get the spreadsheet, and then he'd watch over and he'd just look at the numbers and he'd call this precinct in Chicago and tell him what to emphasize.
Mm.
And he also invented a thing called the talking points. Have you heard of that? Okay, so he organized the churches um, who have, very conservative aspects. And of course, because of their ideas of good and evil, there are a lot of people that fail to be Christian. But he organized the conservative churches into a large group. He made friends with oh, what were they called? I think it was called a round table, but they were 50 mega pastors that met personally with him on a regular basis,
Mm.
and they controlled about 250,000 churches, mega
Wow.
churches.
Wow.
So they were like precinct captains, and what he did was every day he would create the talking points, which are the things that she needed to be repeated endlessly, and he would distribute these to the churches and to
Wow.
the conservative radio people and all,
Propaganda. Wow.
and so that system's in place. That's what they do now. They just stick to the point and never vary
That's
from
that's
whatever
what it
they're supposed
feels like. I mean, I went to different I grew up in non-denominational Christian kind of fundamentalist, and I've been kind of weirded out how similar they all sound, and I'm like, okay, where's this? Why do they all sound so similar? Like, what's happening? So,
it's yes, that's part of it. They controlled the narrative, and they were way better than a lot of other people at controlling the narrative. And he set that system in place. He set the system in place that relates to um, uh, oh fuck, I don't know. Sometimes thought goes by. Anyway, he did. Let me try to grasp one sort of characteristic story. He believed his numbers over everything. So in 2006 at the by-election, it's not happening according to what he expected. And he kept on staying on Fox. It's going to switch. We're going to win. We're going to win. And it never happened. Because when I write about it, I say he doesn't understand that even with the conservatives, especially the older people, not so much the youth right now, but to them, going in and having a secret ballot is a kind of religion.
Mm.
And so you don't know how many wives have been saying to their husband, oh yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump, and then they're going to vote for somebody else because of the abortion thing, right? And so let's see. Anyway, blah blah blah. He works for Fox. He works for the Washington Post. He's a favorite of the guy that owns all those newspapers, and he's a theoretician of conservatives, and he's wrong more than often. But he had his day, right?
Mm.
And he steered us into, some of the most awful shit that's happened.
I have a question.
Go for it.
What do you believe that do you believe that it's harmful for someone to practice maybe Hinduism, and instead they should do the 6 essential exercises from Steiner, in the idea that it's kind of like more backwards or from a different time? What's your view on different spiritual practices and the ones that need to be done the most now? Does it if one wants to progress on the wave of this next epoch, like what do you think the most advantageous practices are for the individual soul to progress and evolve? Yeah. I mean, in the
what do you mean by epoch? What kind of times are you talking about? He
I'm
had a
thinking
very
about
specific
the next
meaning to that.
2,000 years. I'm thinking about this upcoming 2,000 years that we're in right now.
Okay, yeah, that's there's some very serious differences between the spirituality of the East and the spirituality of the West. So sort of appreciating that can help figure out which way you want to jump. And it isn't like one's better than the other, but they certainly are different. When they use the word ego, for example, they use it in a totally different way than what Steiner would use ego for. He calls it the I am, the ich. And it's not like there's an argument over those things. It's just that they have, a different emphasis and different cultural institutions. And I would. Where we go after we go into the spirit world has very little to do with what goes on in the earth.
Whoa, really? Tell me more about that. Wow.
Well, first of all, when you're at the midnight hour, you see your whole existence. So it's a question of making decisions and then diving into another incarnation in which you forget it all. but you've chosen to be there, or you wouldn't be in the body.
What do you mean by
And
midnight hour?
what?
What do you mean by midnight hour?
Oh, that's when you turn around and come back after your death. You go all the way out into the cosmos, and then you figure whatever shit you're going to figure out. And then Steiner gets all these details. I don't think it's that important, but then you come back. Then you go through the spheres on the way in, and you pick up leftover karma shit or whatever. You build your astrality. Your spirit's out there. Then you build your astrality and pick up all the goofy stuff you got to have. And then you hit life and try to deal.
Love that.
I mean, the it's probably better to make the future than try to imagine the future. Get on the creative side of it.
It makes a lot of sense. I really believe that belief and action are real. Together, they're real.
Well, we have insights and we have to trust them, whatever our insights are. We should, whatever else anybody tells you, if your insight's otherwise, trust your self. And if your instinct is to do some Hinduism, throw a little Steiner on the side, maybe, go hang out with a shaman and do some psychedelics or whatever the fuck it is, These are your choices. That's your path. And of course, there's shit that happens that you can't predict and you're not going to like. So, right? Have you had a few of those?
My mom died when I was 4, so I got a little bit.
Yeah. Everybody's got this, parents. And I mean, one of the things I think people get into confusion about is with the idea of karma. They think, oh, well, my karma was to be born in the Bolshevik army. Fuck it, man. Your karma was to be born with the family that you lived in and the soldiers you're in the same platoon with and the wife you met in the bar. And, it's the intimate relations where the karma is. It's not the sort of.
I love that. That's so beautiful. I love your way of seeing this. That's really refreshing. I think people should be able to hear that. And I'm glad you're here. And yeah.
Well, I'm glad I'm here, and I'm glad I get to sing the songs I get to sing. And I used to worry about getting the word out about this or that or the other thing, but I made a deal with divine providence that I wouldn't go out and stand on a street corner, but I would respond honestly to whatever you dragged across me in Providence. And guess what? There he is. So you get the whole 9 yards, and I get to meet you, and we should stay in touch,
I would love to keep having you on here and share your wisdom.
Well, yeah. When Steiner taught a way to a new kind of thinking, and I talked about it with the book Goethe's Theory of Knowledge, which involves an empirical study of your own mind. Okay, so at a certain point, your experiences start to change, and you have an experience which Steiner called "it thinks in me." And Tomberg, do you know Tomberg's work? Well, Tomberg says.
You said Tom Burke? You said
Tomberg.
Burke.
Valentin Tomberg, author of Meditations on the Tarot, A Journey into Christian Hermeticism. You haven't run into that book?
I'm interested in intellectuals. I'm not an intellectual, but I'm interested. So I read books. I'm reading Steiner, but I'm not one of those people that can read 100 books. I like can read maybe one book a month or something, and I listen to it. So
anyway, he's well, he's a reincarnation of Solomon and wrote a really great book on the law.
wow,
Besides a book on tarot, it's called The Art of the Good, The Regeneration of Fallen Justice.
wow.
But anyway, his idea was that, how did we shift the Tumblr?
You were telling me about the it thinks in me. It
Oh
so
yeah, and his idea was to learn to think on your knees. The idea is to turn thinking into a spiritual experience that's
wow.
yours.
Wow.
And,
How do you do that? Please teach us.
well, Steiner told his people, and they don't do it, but you study his. He created a science of knowing, because you can't have a science without a science of knowing. So that's the first thing he did. And he modeled his science of knowing based on what he saw was the best scientist of the time, which was Goethe. And the things are explained in the book. It's like there's a trick that a lot of Steiner people don't understand when they read that book and his other book called The Philosophy of Freedom. But basically, you read a little and then you look inside.
Mm, mm,
Okay, so that starts experience and thinking. So there you are. You're sitting in your room, right?
mm.
And there's all this sensory experience. Your butt hurts, your back needs a scratch, you need a drink, you want to cough, the light's too bright, I'm talking too loud, you know. And then there's something going on inside you that's totally invisible. And it's your activity. And so the science of knowing is to help you know that more intimately, what lies potential in your own thinking. And so that's uh, Goethe's theory of knowledge, and it just takes you step by step in self-observation. Then you grow it. You grow it by learning yourself. You don't have to. It's not a doctrine. It's you get observational. It's this. Oh, I do this in my mind. That's interesting. And there's no hurry, particularly with that book. The book to have on your bednight, your bed bed dresser. What do you call the table by your bed?
A stand?
Bedstand is the one by Catherine MacCoun on alchemy. But yeah, she's pretty terrific. She's I could tell some stories. Yeah, she's
Tell a story about that. I want to hear one.
okay. So remember, I was telling you about this meeting that Steiner wanted to happen between the Platonists and the Aristotelians.
Mm,
Okay, so this actually happened from 97 to 2003 on an internet group called The Ark, where there were all these really interesting people and they shared information. And anyway, you could say that the the relevance of the mother to go with the relevance of Christ becomes important in that. Okay, so there we are in this group, and we have this woman that we communicate back and forth, a very active group, and it's late summer, I think, and Catherine says, "Well, I have to go to Monaco because Christ asked me to go, and it's because I speak French, and he wants me to go there and experience Ramadan." So in the early fall of 2000, she goes and spends Ramadan. I mean, I've never seen her in the flesh. She's apparently strikingly beautiful blonde.
Wow.
but she's also a fucking genius. So she's anyway, and I don't mean that she's not polite and everything. She's just very wonderful in a way. But she was hanging out in a coffee house and started talking to some men, and they discovered that she was somebody that they would consider worthy. So they invited her into the woman's house for Ramadan,
Wow.
and she did. And she had some spiritual experiences in connection with that, and she wrote articles to us called the Ramadan Diaries.
Mm.
One of the things that she talked about was that you could see Christ's excarnation as kind of having a hyperbolic element because he couldn't teach his social things to the Greeks and the Romans and the Jews. They weren't
Mm.
ready for it.
Yeah.
So the angel that inspires um what's his face? The guy that the top Muslim, what's his name?
Oh, Muhammad.
Oh, Muhammad, yeah, Muhammad.
Mm.
It presented those ideas, which leads to this family way that the Islam practices. But when they do practice it, and of course, it's got nothing to do with the terrorists and the crazy and all the rest of that, but the protection of women and children is like a central thing to their religion. Anyway, so that's Catherine. Christ says, "Hey, go do a job," and she does, and she's it's an extraordinary book. It's about the Philosopher's Stone, but it takes you one step at a time through yourself. Beautiful. She's a great writer.
I think our listeners, you should check out this book and tell me about it, comment about it, like, and put it in below, and share what you find. So
Are you talking to me?
no, I'm talking to the people listening
Okay, yeah, that's what
after.
I thought. I just
I'm
yeah, no,
wondering
these are
about what?
go ahead.
I'm wondering about. I have a theory that uh, that to be too much spirit is to be too much into spirit is not a good thing, just as much as too much to be in the physical, like the Ahriman and the Lucifer thing. So is it? It seems like Christ is like it's like this, kind of going through these. And is the key? Do you think it's the key is to stay near the center of that of this fluctuation between spirit and matter, and then so you go with it? Is that the idea?
Well, think for a minute about what you can actually will. What can you actually will? See, mostly we don't know that we can will certain things in the soul, but you get in the system and then you find your way to that, and it, ultimately the work that you do isn't training your conceptual life; it's training your will. You can do a thing. So I don't know if I got anywhere near answering that question or not, but
So what you're saying is cultivating a life force towards an individual thing that you can put your attention to. Is that what you're talking about? So in relation to the
that works.
fluctuations between material and spirit, the key is, yeah, harnessing and channeling the life force forward. That is the thing to do, you're saying. So there's something like that.
Well, I think you're in the right ballpark, and you should define it yourself.
Okay.
Accept that way of seeing. You may change your mind, right? You may have experiences say, "Oh, I got to do this," but stick with what you think is going on. That's you've got this far, right? We're all survivors for God's sakes. I mean, even Trump, people know what a well, people don't, but if they knew about his biography, they'd be horrified.
Mm,
They'd be surprised he isn't a serial killer.
mm.
His dad sent him to bully school. The only way he could survive was be a bully.
Can you are you good at decoding spiritual experiences? I was wondering if you could help me understand my initiation that happened a year ago.
Well, I don't know what you mean by the word, but we can talk about it, whatever you want to say about it.
So I experienced I was like 50 in the spirit world, 50 in the human world. And there was all of these different rituals that I went through, different truths I learned. Uh, and I was mainly devoured by the devouring mother. And I saw a lot of that. I saw the very angry kind of dictator energy that was kind of like the evil masculine side, and it was kind of I was in the karmic mirror realms, and I had all of my negativity shown to me, or all the negative stuff, and I got kind of a lot of I wrestled with a lot of those concepts, like the infinite darkness inside of me, and I felt a lot of that. Um, and there was this garment, this white garment that was given me, and these other people, they had this white garment, and you would put it on, and then there's a bunch of esoteric stuff. VUV was written on the walls of the place where I was in the spirit.
What was the letters written on the wall?
It was V, then U, then V in that arrangement.
Well, it's a little bit like Yad He Vauhi, which is, of course, a name in Hermetics. The It sounds like you had a meeting with what Steiner would call the guardian of the lesser guardian of the threshold.
Mm. Oh, that's how it felt too. It felt like that.
Yeah, so it's horrible. When I had the biggest one I had, I was pacing around my room for about 6 hours. I thought I was the most worst person that ever was existed in the whole fucking world.
That's how it
Absolutely
felt too.
100% useless.
I
And
thought,
then
yeah.
finally, I decided to say the Lord's Prayer. I was desperate and I fell, and that drove it away. But it
So
took me all
what is
that
that?
time
Are you
before
and
I.
I bad people for and other people? Are we bad people for having that? Like what's the truth about that experience?
Okay, so we talked a little bit about depression, right?
Yeah.
All right, so have you ever heard of the double?
Like an evil version of us?
Well, it's very specific idea that Steiner said we lost and we need to bring back. And he gave very explicit descriptions of it. It used to the we sometimes call it about the doppelganger, and it's entered
Yeah.
our language in weird ways. But the way he teaches it is kind of scary in a way, but it's understandable. Goes something like this. Uh, Shortly after you're born, these two high level hierarchical entities attach themselves to your soul. Um, and you could call one the ahrimanic double and one the luciferic double. Okay. And what Steiner said was that their main, well, they have two purposes. One is help you make the fuck up that gets you to the karma you need to get to.
Oh, wow. Well,
Okay. So if they're on the what seemed to be on the negative side of things, but and then the other thing that they do is they foster disease.
oh no.
So the luciferic double produces neurological disorders, and the ahrimanic double produces material or physical diseases.
Hmm.
And we have to have these. So there has to be something that helps us be stupid in the right way, if we want to call it that, or have a bad habit that we don't overcome. And then, you know, stuff happens because we're not perfect or never going to be perfect, and we should give up the idea of perfection completely.
Hmm.
That's a very definite idea to throw out. But is that helping at all?
Yeah, that's fascinating. How do you why do we need those things? Why?
Say again?
Why do we need those things? Like why?
Oh, why? Oh, well,
Why do
you
we
have
need
to ask that.
diseases and yeah.
Uh,
How does that help us?
well, okay. Let's do something abstract and theoretical, okay, in a way. But okay, so principle, God is everything. We can work with that, right? So God is evil and good
Yeah.
and mad. That's the part I like. The gods are
I tell
partly
people this
mad.
is God's institution. Earth is God's mental institution.
Yeah. The gods are mad. We're mad. You know, when you think about some of the stupid we do when we're experimenting in our youth, and, it's just, it's hard. It's hard to be alive, and it's hard to live through this period of time. But at the same time, there's a few simple rules, and one is trust yourself absolutely. And a good help in that is in learning to trust the other person. That's sometimes a little harder. And then they're there, these intimate people we have arguments with about our life and the choices we're going to make and all the rest of it. They're teachers. I have 5 kids. When I list my best teachers, they're at the top.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm getting visited right now from my youngest son. He's all of 41, but he's into crypto and AI and uh, games and all this stuff that I've never been involved with. And so we sit in front of the TV and he shows me stuff and teaches me things. And he's going to produce yeah, if we're still connected, you'll probably hear about it. He's going to produce some videos, I think, on helping people understand AI better. They're, the, the images we get in the press are actually cultivated to make us like it.
Hmm.
They want us to like it. So did some of the design elements and the coding involves, but if you get deeper into it, you can see there's the word.
When I look at it, I feel like
We're
it's the universe destroying or something.
they use psychology to take advantage of us in the AIs. It's in the code without really thinking very much about it. But anyway, so go with what we were saying. I'm sorry.
It seems like it's universe destroying. That's how I feel about it.
Well, there's some very interesting concepts that I've run into about that kind of thought, you might say. And uh, to me, it's one of those things that's true from a certain point of view and not true from another point of view, and neither point of view is wrong, but you can certainly choose one in a circumstance and in a different one in the other. I mean, you have to define the good, so that's up to you. You can't define it for another person. So we're kind of stuck with what they want to do. Life's not easy. I'm not getting anywhere what you're asking, am I?
No, I see it. I see every side, so it makes sense.
Okay.
Um, um, what tarot card do you most resonate? Like with what tarot card do you feel like is the resonant frequency of your soul if you had to pick one? And in this incarnation, what would you pick?
The Fool.
Please elaborate.
This was years ago. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area, which was kind of a magical school in the 60s and stuff. And my younger brother's come over and he's got a tarot deck. And he's going to teach me tarot. And we're stoned and we're laying on this waterbed, right? Big, huge waterbed. And he fans the cards out and he has me pick 3 cards. And the first one's my outer life. The second one's my inner life. And the third one's my life destiny. So for my outer life, I get the Hermit, which is pretty much true. And it's my, you know, and my inner life is the Fool. And my life destiny is the Magician card.
Oh,
Okay.
that's so powerful. I love it.
And then on another day, again, I'm stoned, same bed, but I have my own deck this time. I fan it out and I use my right hand and I run it over and I feel this kind of tug. And I pull 3 cards and it's exactly the same 3 cards.
Oh my.
Just from feeling. I'm not done yet.
I
Okay. So
love
this
this.
gets
Oh,
weirder. Okay.
this is so good.
Now, I got a little child in me, wanting to be a magician. Fuck it. Why not? Right. So I'm paying attention to all that stuff. And one of the things that I do for fun, I have some friends, we go to Yosemite Park. And over the course of our visits, I bring 2 different staffs, wizard staffs, right? One of them I still have, but uh, the other one that I got, I took the bark off to where it was just itself, and I used a little bit of lacquer to protect it, and then I drew on it the 3 cards, right? And then I made designs, which are made with curlicues all over it. Right? So I had this staff around my house that was doing this. And this guy was living in our garage. This is Berkeley, right? Guy was living in this garage and he wanted to borrow my staff because he was going to go to what at that time in Berkeley was called Ho Chi Minh Park to a party. And he already had the robe and the cowl. So off he goes. And when he goes out the door with my staff, I think, that's not coming back. And sure enough, he got ripped off for it.
Mm.
Okay. So So go fast forward later, all right? And the 3 cards, we're still working with whatever the fuck that is, right? So I don't have the staff, but I'm going through some changes and I'm uncertain about a lot of things. And I read the book Findhorn. Have you read that? Okay, Findhorn is this place off the coast of Scotland where these people were able to contact nature spirits and they could grow cabbages this side and sand
Wow.
by doing what they were told to do.
Amazing.
Magic of Findhorn is the name of magic. So I thought, oh, fuck, magic has to be real. So I decided, oh, I'll go on a spirit walk. Which to me was you go out, oh, that way. Oh, that way. Oh, turn around this way. You make some totally abstract random walks. But since I'm in a neighborhood, I walk by this place and I never go in. It's a little bookstore. It's kind of a specialist because it's Berkeley. It's got literary criticism and poetry books in the window. But outside, perfect Berkeley weather, it's 70 degrees and sunshiny. And there's a bookcase about yay wide and maybe about 5 feet tall outside. And it's got occult written on it. And I go over there and I stand there and I go, oh, there's no books on magic. And I call back to the guy. He's in the back of the office, right? Maybe 30 feet away from me. Got any books on magic? He said, no. I turn around and walk and say, wait a minute. I just got this book this morning. And I walk up and he hands me this book. And he says, how much do you want for it? And I said, or he said $7.50. And I said, well, okay. And that actually happened to be all the money I had in the world at the time.
Wow.
And I ended up getting this book of Franz Bardon on ceremonial magic. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but all his books are great. Right? He's got pages and pages.
Can you show the cover? Can you show the cover of the book?
Oh, yeah, the covers are somewhat different, but this is a rare copy. They don't make them in hardcover anymore. Mm-hmm. And this book is good. I just happened to pick it up. This book has got some really interesting stuff on tarot in it too.
Wow.
Well, Practical Astrology by Saint Germain.
Why is there like a UFO on it, or what is that? Why?
Oh, I did that when I was going through the early parts of my second childhood and got into stickers.
Oh, I was like, why?
Yeah, I got stickers all over the place. No, when you get to your second childhood, do it. I mean, I sit around the house now. Fuck, I'm 83. I'm just gonna fucking enjoy it. But anyway, this is a really interesting book, and it actually gives the ancient Egyptian understanding of things. So, for example, this is what they're, I don't know if you can see it very well. These cards look like. You can get the book, but you can't get the cards anymore. There used to be a deck. A hardcover of this is worth about $800.
Wow.
Of this, maybe about $400. Mm-hmm. And the, what's the other one? Oh, and the deck that I have the deck in is worth about $800.
I think I have one last question before we end. My question is, for people dealing with sickness from these ahrimanic and luciferic beings, what would you say is the best way to burn up that karma or to deal with them, or like how do we walk in perfect health? Or maybe you don't like perfect, but is there anything to do to improve it, do you think?
I wrote a little book called The Mystery of the Double in the Light of the Teachings of Rudolf Steiner. That's got a certain amount of intellectual stuff, but years of experience that I've had in relating to my double. We have a friendly relationship now. But there was a time when, when they're in you, you feel a wrongness. you know, the judgmentalness, for example. And of course, you experience that in spades, right? So basically, that's their activity. Do you know about my bookstore?
Tell me more.
It's on lulu.com. Well, I'll send you a link, and I'll send you a link to the book. Most of my
And
writings I've been able.
send me all the links to put in the description so people can find everything. I will put every link you want in the so people can find everything.
Okay. Anyway, there was a thought there.
About health and the harmonic and luciferic beings in regard to how to be healthier.
Well, it's an idea that's in its time and will help a lot of people to study these things. And I wish this is a thing I couldn't say. A lot of my stuff is available for free, but this is one of the things that only exists on the bookstore.
Mm. Mm.
But I'll send you some linky stuff, and that should help you begin to.
Excellent. And is the double you're talking about, is that anywhere near the idea of the anima?
You're being Jungian. The anima. Is that Jung, right?
Yeah.
Uh, it's entirely possible. The phenomenon certainly can have more than one name. But basically, we have these creatures with us that help us have the illnesses we need to have and help us find our karma. And according to Steiner, they leave 3 days before death. That's why people who are about to die sort of get, not so bad. And well, I'll send you an email with links, and you can share them with your friends, and then get back to me about whatever you want to do next. Oh, the there is a meeting with the greater guardian of the threshold that tends to happen after the lesser guardian is through beating you up.
Mm.
And that's when Christ initiates you. But that's a wholly different kind of experience. But the other one, going through the nasty stuff, is preparation. It's like fire that burns,
Yeah, I
the
felt the
dross.
fire actually. I thought I was gonna die from the heat.
Yeah, it's very powerful. You must have some kind of excellent not gifts already. So
I can when I meditate for like 6 hours and fast, I'm seeing the gods to an
yeah,
extent. So
I would be. You have your path. I have my path. John Smith has his path, and most of us are clueless. And are we having fun yet?
I'm having a lot of fun.
There you go.
I hope our viewers are having a lot of fun as well. Please comment how you what you think about his ideas, and please like and share this video and help support the work I'm doing here if you want to donate, or if you want to find someone who I should interview, or if you have any questions for I might have Joel very possibly on the show again. So what question should I ask him? And what else? Um, yeah, thank you for watching. I really appreciate your support. I really appreciate everyone who's joining this journey to continue to bring spiritual people onto this channel and support their work, support the spiritualization of the earth and the spiritualization of the people here, and in gaining. I hope that we can help bring more soul to the world, not less soul. So, or to the people who want it, more soul. So, yeah. Aho and amen. I'm gonna stop the recording.